Please, hurry. Those were the last two words anyone ever heard him say out loud. Not to his kids, not to his girlfriend, not to his brother who loved him more than anything in this world. He said them into a phone, in the dark, somewhere out in the middle of a field in rural Texas, with nobody around him and nobody able to find him. And then the line went dead. His phone went straight to voicemail after that. His bank account never moved again. His truck sat abandoned on the side of a two-lane highway with the gas gauge on empty and his keys still missing. And the man who had driven that truck, a father of four, a hard worker, somebody's everything, was simply gone, like the earth had opened up and swallowed him whole. 7 words. That is all he left behind in his last coherent message. 7 words that have haunted investigators, devastated a family, and kept thousands of people up at night replaying audio, rewinding timelines, and asking the same question over and over again. What actually happened to Tyler Mason on the night of August 8, 2013? We are not going to give you easy answers today, because easy answers do not exist in this case. What we are going to do is walk you through every detail, every phone call, every unanswered question, and every theory that has circulated for over a decade. Because Tyler Mason deserves that. His children deserve that. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why this case still keeps investigators, his family, and an entire online community wide awake at night. Before we go any further into what happened that night, you need to know who Tyler Mason was. Not what the headlines called him, not what the police reports reduced him to, but who he actually was as a human being, because that matters enormously when you are trying to understand why what happened to him is so deeply wrong and so deeply painful. Tyler Mason was born on November 18, 1986, in Fort Worth, Texas. He grew up in Crowley, a small town just south of Fort Worth, in a family that valued hard work and loyalty above just about everything else. His parents, Brad and Kathy Mason, raised him with a strong sense of responsibility. He was the kind of kid who made friends easily, who had a quick sense of humor that could light up a room, and who carried a genuine warmth that people remembered long after they had left his company. When Tyler was 16 years old and still in high school, he met a 15-year-old girl named Diane Lofton. And if you believe in the idea that some people are simply meant to find each other, then Tyler and Diane were proof of that. They fell into each other's orbit almost immediately and never really left. They had their rough patches over the years, every long relationship does. But through all of it, through the moves and the financial stress and the personal struggles, they stayed together. After high school, they lived for a while in Fort Worth, and then in early 2012, they packed everything up, loaded the kids into the car, and relocated to San Angelo, Texas, hoping that a fresh start in a new city would give their growing family the life they deserved. And for a while, it really seemed like it might. By the summer of 2013, Tyler was working as an oil field worker for Renegade Oil Services. That is not a glamorous job. It is brutally physical, often dangerous, and relentlessly demanding. Tyler was clocking more than 60 hours a week out in the Texas heat, doing the kind of labor that most people would not last a week doing. He did it because he had 4 children counting on him. 3 of those kids were his and Diane's together, and 1 was from a previous relationship, and Tyler treated all 4 of them with the same devoted love. The people who knew him best describe him as fiercely protective of his children, the kind of dad who showed up, who was present, who felt the weight of fatherhood not as a burden, but as his most important purpose. That is who Tyler Mason was. A man who was trying. His brother Kevin, the person who would end up at the center of the worst night of this entire story, was one of Tyler's closest companions. They had that bond that brothers who grow up genuinely liking each other develop over years. Kevin was not just Tyler's sibling, he was one of his best friends. They talked regularly, they looked out for each other, and when everything began to fall apart in the early hours of August 9, 2013, Kevin would be the one Tyler called first. That detail matters. When you are scared and alone on a dark highway in the middle of the night and you reach for your phone, you call the person you trust most. Tyler called Kevin. And what Kevin heard on the other end of that call is something he has never fully been able to make sense of. Not then, and not in the decade since. Before we go any further, we want to pause right here and say, if this story is resonating with you, If you feel that pull to stay with us until the very end, then drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you are watching from. We genuinely want to hear from you. And if you have not already, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Because the truth is, this case is one of many where real people need real voices telling their stories. Now let us get back to Tyler Mason and the night that changed everything. August 8, 2013, started like almost any other day for Tyler Mason. He had been working grueling hours at the oil field, the kind of schedule that leaves a man physically drained and mentally frayed at the edges. The financial pressure of raising a young family in a new city was real and constant. There was a newborn son at home who needed things that cost money. There were 3 other children who needed the same. Tyler loved his family deeply, but love does not pay the bills, and the weight of being the primary provider was sitting heavier on him than he let on to most people. Those who were closest to him say that in the days leading up to August 8th, Tyler had seemed off, not broken, not dangerous, just pressed, like a man carrying more than he could comfortably hold and trying not to let anyone see how much it was costing him. What happened in the days before August 8th is important, and we are going to be honest with you about it because Tyler's story deserves the full truth, not a cleaned-up version. Tyler had struggled with substance use on and off throughout his adult life, specifically methamphetamine. He had been clean for approximately 6 months leading into the summer of 2013, a genuine effort, a real attempt to get himself right for his family. But the stress of those 60-hour work weeks, a new baby, financial strain, and the ordinary tensions of a long-term relationship had begun to crack that effort. On August 7th, one day before he disappeared, Tyler called Kevin and asked if he knew where to find meth. That was the signal that something in Tyler had shifted, that the pressure had gotten to a place he could not hold on his own. He did not go home that night. When Tyler came home on the evening of August 8th, Diane was waiting. She had known something was wrong. They argued. It was not the first argument they had ever had, and it would not have been the last, except that it was. Diane told Tyler she believed he had been using again. Tyler had not slept at home the night before. The argument escalated the way arguments do when exhaustion and fear and love all get tangled together, and at 11:54 in the evening, Tyler walked out the front door, got into his silver Ford F-150, and drove away angry. He called his father in Crowley, a 3.5-hour drive away, and told him he was on his way over. Diane, still upset but knowing her man, called her brother-in-law Kevin and warned him that Tyler was probably going to run out of gas before he got very far, because the truck was nearly empty when he left. Diane left a gas can on the porch for Kevin in case he needed to go help Tyler. Then she went inside to check on the kids and try to get some rest. That is the last image of normalcy in this entire story. Diane putting a gas can on the porch, going back inside, a house full of sleeping children, a woman who had no idea that the argument she just had with the man she had loved since she was 15 years old was the last real conversation she would ever have with him. About 44 minutes after Tyler left the house, at approximately 12:30 in the morning on August 9th, Tyler called Kevin. His truck had run out of gas, exactly as Diane had feared. He told Kevin he was pulled over on Highway 277, near the small town of Bronte, Texas. Kevin told him to hold on. He was coming. Kevin grabbed his girlfriend Audrey and his 4-year-old child, loaded them into the car, drove to Tyler and Diane's house to pick up the gas can that was sitting on the porch, and set out toward Highway 277. Meanwhile, Tyler was alone on one of the most isolated stretches of road in that part of Texas. Highway 277 near Bronte is not the kind of road that sees much traffic in the middle of the night. It cuts through flat, open scrubland, bordered by patches of dense brush, rocky terrain, and almost total darkness once you are away from any town. A man standing on the side of that road at 12:30 in the morning is as alone as a person can be in the modern world. No streetlights, no nearby businesses, no neighbors, just the dark, the highway, and whatever was happening out there in the fields that Tyler could apparently see and hear and feel pressing in on him. At 12:50 in the morning, Tyler did something that became the central mystery of this entire case. He called 911. Not Kevin, not Diane, not his father. He called emergency services, and the call he made, garbled, desperate, cut through with static and fear, has been analyzed, debated, transcribed, and replayed by thousands of people for over a decade, and it still has not been fully explained. Here is what investigators and listeners have been able to piece together from the recording. Tyler told the dispatcher that he was in the middle of a field. He said his truck had run out of gas. He said there was one car there. He said someone was being chased into the woods. He asked the dispatcher to please hurry. At one point in the call, he appears to say something that sounds like he witnessed something violent. The audio quality is poor enough that no one has ever been able to conclusively confirm what those words were. But the desperation in his voice, that part is unmistakable. What makes that 911 call even more chilling is what the dispatcher did with it. According to local media reports, the call was logged not as a man in danger, not as a possible witness to a crime, but as a routine call about a motorist who had run out of gas. The dispatcher did not send a rescue response. A sheriff's deputy, Deputy Nathan Neal, was eventually sent to the scene, but by the time Deputy Neal arrived at Tyler's truck at around 1:10 in the morning, Tyler was not there. The truck was there, sitting partially over the white line on the highway, exactly 4 miles south of Bronte. The gas tank was empty. There was no damage to the vehicle, no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no blood inside the cab. But Tyler Mason was nowhere. His phone, his keys, gone with him, wherever he had gone. Here is where the story takes a turn that has driven Tyler's family to the edge of reason and back again. When Kevin arrived at the truck at almost exactly the same moment as the deputy, he was on the phone with Tyler as he pulled up, and Tyler, on the other end of that phone, said, "I can see you. I'm right here." Kevin looked around. The deputy looked around. Neither of them could see Tyler. Not a silhouette, not a flashlight, not a sound from the brush. And yet Tyler insisted he was right there. He could see his brother. And then, during that same call, while Kevin was standing next to the truck and the deputy was nearby, Tyler told Kevin something that made Kevin's blood run cold. He said he was bleeding. He said he was 10 minutes up the road, and then the phone went dead. It went straight to voicemail, and it never rang again. Kevin waited by that truck for 30 to 45 minutes after the call dropped, hoping Tyler would walk out of the darkness and get into the car. He did not. Kevin eventually drove home, believing Tyler would turn up. Maybe he had gone to a friend's house. Maybe he was cooling off somewhere. Kevin came back around 5 in the morning. Tyler's truck was still there. Tyler was not. Around 8 in the morning, the truck was towed. And Tyler Mason, father of 4, oil field worker, the man who had called his brother for help and told him he was bleeding, was simply, impossibly, gone. The days that followed Tyler's disappearance were a kind of slow-motion nightmare for Diane and the Mason family. At first, there was the hope that sits on top of fear like a lid, the belief that there must be an explanation, that he would call, that someone would spot him. Tyler did not have a history of vanishing without a word. He had 4 children. He had a life he was working to hold together. People who knew him said over and over again that it was completely unlike him to simply disappear without contact. His family was not looking for a man who had run away. They were looking for a man they believed something had happened to. The difference matters. Because the way you search for someone who left on purpose is entirely different from the way you search for someone who was taken from the world against his will. Diane filed a missing persons report on August 13, 2013, 5 days after Tyler vanished. The delay was not unusual. Law enforcement does not always move quickly on adult missing persons cases, especially when there are circumstances that make the disappearance look voluntary on the surface. The argument, the warrant, the drug use. But Diane knew her man. She knew that whatever his struggles were, Tyler Mason would not leave his children without a word. She was so certain of this that she used what little money the family had to hire a private investigator named Paula Boudreau, and she coordinated a private aerial search with Texas Ranger Nick Hanna. That search, like every subsequent search, came back empty. The terrain around Highway 277 near Bronte is rough and unforgiving. Dense brush, rocky ground, rattlesnakes, wild boars, and vast stretches of private property whose owners were not always cooperative about granting search access. The official law enforcement search took place on August 16, 2013, a full week after Tyler disappeared. A professional search and rescue team combed the area near the abandoned truck. They found nothing. Another large-scale search was conducted on October 24, 2013, with more personnel and more ground covered. They found nothing. Tyler's family and friends set up a Facebook page called Help Find Tyler Mason, and it grew rapidly. Tens of thousands of followers sharing information, coordinating search efforts, posting tips, and keeping the case alive in the public consciousness long after local media had moved on. The true crime community online picked up the case and ran with it. Reddit threads appeared. Podcasts dedicated full episodes to breaking down the 911 audio frame by frame. YouTube channels with hundreds of thousands of subscribers gave Tyler's story the kind of attention that local investigators seemed unable or unwilling to give it themselves. There was no activity on Tyler's bank account after the night he disappeared. Not a single withdrawal, not a single purchase. His cell phone never pinged another tower after 1:19 in the morning on August 9, 2013. A man who simply wanted to disappear, who wanted to walk away from his life, would have needed money, would have made a call, would have left some kind of digital trace in the weeks and months that followed. Tyler left nothing. The silence of his accounts and his phone in the days, weeks, and months after that night speaks more loudly than almost any other piece of evidence in this case. Because silence, in this context, does not read like a man who ran. It reads like a man who could not. There are 5 major theories that have circulated around Tyler Mason's disappearance over the years, and we are going to walk through all of them honestly, because Tyler's family has had to live with every single one of these being debated publicly, and they deserve for the truth to be treated with care. The first theory is the simplest one and the one that investigators initially seemed most comfortable with. Tyler, under the influence of methamphetamine, became paranoid, fled into the Texas scrubland, and succumbed to the elements. The terrain near Bronte is dangerous at night, even for someone sober and oriented. The temperatures, the wildlife, the rough ground. A disoriented man could come to harm quickly and not be found for a very long time. This theory is not impossible. It fits some of the facts, but it does not fit all of them, and Tyler's family has consistently pushed back on it. The second theory involves foul play by an unknown third party. Remember what Tyler said on that 911 call, that someone was being chased into the woods, that there was a car there, that something had happened. Some researchers who have studied the audio believe they can hear the sound of a gunshot somewhere in the background of the recording. They believe Tyler may have witnessed something he was not supposed to witness on that dark stretch of Highway 277 in the middle of the night. A drug deal, a confrontation, something, and that whoever was involved could not afford to leave a witness behind. This theory would explain the panic in his voice, the urgency of the 911 call, the cryptic references to other people, and the fact that he told Kevin he was bleeding. It would also explain why no trace of Tyler was found in the initial searches. If someone moved him, searches in the immediate area would come back empty. The third theory touches on something that Tyler's family has had to fight against, being used as a way to close the case quietly. Tyler had an active arrest warrant at the time he disappeared. Some investigators and commentators have suggested that when Deputy Neal arrived at the truck, Tyler may have hidden in the brush, specifically to avoid being arrested, that he watched from the darkness as his brother and the deputy stood by his truck, and then simply kept moving. His family and Kevin both reject this theory strongly. Kevin has said that Tyler loved his children too much to hide from the law when he knew his family needed him. He also pointed out something that cuts straight to the heart of this theory's weakness. Tyler called 911 himself. A man trying to avoid the police does not call the police and beg them to hurry. The fourth theory, and perhaps the most troubling to sit with, involves the question of what exactly that 911 call was routed through. Some listeners and researchers have pointed out irregularities in how the call was handled. The call connected not to the correct dispatch center but to a local nursing home in Robert Lee, Texas, before being forwarded. The portion of the recording that contains the most critical information is also the most garbled and the most difficult to decipher. Some people who have studied the case believe the audio may have been tampered with. They believe there are elements of the police response that night that do not add up. The speed at which local law enforcement determined Tyler had left the county, the limited access granted for searches on private property near the scene, and the years of silence from official sources while Tyler's family begged publicly for answers. The fifth theory, and the one that many who have deeply studied this case believe is closest to the truth, is a combination of the drug use and an encounter with unknown individuals. The picture that emerges from this theory is of a man who, under the influence of methamphetamine on an isolated Texas highway in the middle of the night, ran into something or someone out in that darkness. What that something or someone was remains the unanswered question. But the evidence that Tyler encountered another person or other people on that road, his own words on the 911 call, his claim to Kevin that he was bleeding, his insistence that he could see Kevin but would not come forward, points strongly toward the idea that Tyler was not alone out there, and that whatever he encountered, it was the last thing he ever experienced. For 9 years, Tyler Mason's family lived in that particular agony that belongs only to the families of the missing, the space between not knowing and knowing, where grief cannot fully form because hope has not fully died. They never stopped searching. Diane never stopped. She coordinated search teams year after year. She used social media to keep the case in front of the public. She spoke to investigators, to journalists, to podcasters, to anyone who would listen. She did all of this while raising 4 children who grew up without their father, and who, by the time the next chapter of this story arrived, were old enough to feel the full weight of what had been taken from them. The Facebook page had grown to nearly 30,000 followers by then, 30,000 people who had never met Tyler Mason, but who had come to care about what happened to him. On February 4, 2022, Diane posted on the Facebook page. A private search team, led by an advocate named Jason Watts, a man of about 10 searchers who had kept looking when the official searches had stopped, had found clothing near Tyler's last known location, a yellow shirt, camouflage shorts, white Air Max sneakers, the exact outfit Tyler had been wearing on the night of August 8, 2013. Diane wrote, "Answers are something we have searched for. The Texas Rangers were contacted. They widened the search, and they found human remains. The remains were located within approximately 1 mile of where Tyler's truck had been abandoned that night, in the same rough terrain that had been searched multiple times over 9 years, and had, until then, yielded nothing. I feel in our hearts it's him," Diane told reporters. "He wouldn't leave his family. He wasn't that type of person." DNA testing confirmed it on Christmas Day, 2024. Diane posted the results on the Facebook page. The remains found in that Texas scrubland were positively identified as Tyler Mason. He had never left. He had been there, within a mile of his truck, for 9 years, while his family searched and ached and prayed for answers. The confirmation of his death brought a form of closure that the family had been denied for over a decade, but it did not answer the question that has defined this case from the very beginning. How did he die? What happened in the darkness of that field on the night of August 9, 2013? What did Tyler see, or who did Tyler encounter, that turned a man calling his brother for help with a gas can into a man who would never come home? The death of Tyler Mason has been confirmed. The cause and circumstances of that death have not. As of this video, investigators have not publicly released a conclusive manner of death. The family, after more than a decade of fighting for answers, finally knows where Tyler is. But they still do not know why. And that distinction, the difference between where and why, is a wound that does not close. Kevin has spoken publicly about his brother in the years since Tyler's disappearance. He has said something that cuts through all of the theories, all of the speculation, all of the debate. My brother might have been a felon and might have messed with drugs, and he might have relapsed. But he loved his children. He took care of his children. He was a good person. That is the thing that gets lost when cases like this become puzzles for the internet to solve. The fact that at the center of every theory is a real man, a father, someone's brother. The 911 call recording still exists. It is still available online. Thousands of people have listened to it, slowed it down, filtered the audio, run it through software, and written analyses of what they believe Tyler was saying in his final coherent moments. The words, "Please hurry," are clear. The desperation is clear. Everything else remains a question wrapped in static and darkness. What Tyler saw in that field, who or what he encountered, why his remains were not found for 9 years despite multiple organized searches of the same area. These questions do not have clean answers, and anyone who tells you they do is not being honest with you. What this case has instead is a family that loved him, a community that refused to forget him, and a stretch of Texas highway that holds a secret it has not yet fully given up. If you have any information about what happened to Tyler Mason on the night of August 8th and 9th, 2013, you can contact the Coke County Sheriff's Office or reach out through the Help Find Tyler Mason Facebook page. Tips can also be submitted anonymously. The Texas Rangers continue to investigate the circumstances surrounding his death. After everything this family has endured, 9 years of not knowing, of searching empty fields, of raising children who grew up in that particular hollow space where a father used to be, they deserve the truth. Tyler Mason deserved to come home. He did not. And until someone, somewhere, who knows something says what they know out loud, the full truth of what happened on that desolate stretch of Highway 277 will remain exactly where it has always been, out there in the dark, waiting. Before we end this video, we want to take one more moment to say, if you made it all the way here, thank you. Stories like this one matter. The people inside them are real. Please share this video so that Tyler's story reaches more people, because awareness is how cold cases get warm again. Drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. We read every single one. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. We have more stories coming. Stories that deserve the same care, the same attention, and the same determination to keep asking questions long after the world has moved on. We will see you in the next one.